welcome to the PitchVision Academy Cricket Show. This is half an hour or so of your guide to better cricket. Playing it, coaching it, whatever, we don't care, as long as you're helping yourself or helping others to improve the game of cricket. My name is David Hinchliffe. I look after things, and helping me to help you are two very fine cricket coaches. The first is the Director of Cricket at Millfield School. It's Mark Garaway. Hello, Garras. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Oh, absolutely fantastic. I'm watching the sun stream down on the West of Scotland Cricket Club outfield at the moment. It feels like the middle of the summer, but there's definitely no cricket going on, unfortunately. It's all finished.
How's the grass? Growing nicely?
Yeah, it's a bit of a potato field. We also had a softball six-a-side competition with the Glasgow University.
Nice.
And so they've, it was good. It was great. Loads of people there. Lots of people participating who hadn't played cricket before. But yeah, it's made a bit of a mess of the outfield. So the groundsman gets back from his holiday soon. I'm sure he'll be absolutely delighted to see that. Secondly, it's the head of cricket performance at Portsmouth Grammar School. It's Sam Lavery. Hello, Lavers. How's it going?
Very good, thanks, David. Very well, thanks.
Let's talk a little bit about success later in cricketing life. One thing I've noticed has been talked about recently is players who have got on the, I think we can say, the wrong side of 35, but have still had great success. There's quite a long list, especially batsmen, but we'll also have left-arm spinners in the list as well with Herath and Gooch, Sangakkara, Tendulkar. Players who haven't let their age stop them being successful in it, and in quite a few cases, actually, they've done better as they've got past 35 rather than worse. So what do you think that is all about? Do you think there's just a certain type of person who needs that extra time and suddenly it clicks for them a little bit later, or is there some sort of magic trick that these people know that others don't?
I think what these guys do at the age of 35 and after 35 is that they've obviously picked up a huge amount of experience, and that experience is something that we don't have at 19, 20, 21, do we? So you look at somebody like Kumar Sangakkara this year in county cricket. He's averaged way over 100, and basically he's used his passion for the game, his want to keep playing as long as he possibly can, and allied that really with his experience that he's got to be able to manage himself at the crease in the way that he does. So we've got a lot of batters here, haven't we, in this list that you mentioned earlier. We've got Herath, who has done fantastically well as a spin bowler, but now actually we've got somebody in Jimmy Anderson, and I'm fascinated to see how Jimmy goes, because he's somebody who's always looked after his conditioning, somebody who has looked after his eating and his nutrition, and now has gone past 35. He's got a huge level of skill, but more importantly, he's got fantastic levels of experience and still loves the game. I can see Jimmy, barring injury, going on for another 2 or 3 years, and he's going to keep adding to wickets at the rate of knots, isn't he? Because his nous that he's collected over the years is going to stand him in good stead. So that's why people can be successful. And lastly, the strength and conditioning nowadays is getting really good. You've only got to look at somebody like Ryan Giggs in the football world, who was able to play up until 40, and that's because of the way that he's learnt, and his physios and his S&C coaches have learnt to manage the body. But if we take this into club cricket, so many people do well after the age of 35 because they just understand how to go about their business. But you've got to have that enthusiasm for the game that's still there, even towards the 35, 40 years of age.
I guess enthusiasm is the key word, isn't it, Lavers, in that, everybody slows down a bit the older they get, of course. That's bound to happen. But if you can make up for that in A, enthusiasm, and B, having that experience that Gareth was talking about, then you are in a strong position. And it's a bit of a cliche, isn't it, to say about people, or once they get past 30, that's it. They're on the decline. But actually, there's plenty of examples of, if you can keep up that fitness, keep up that enthusiasm, then that decline is not necessarily there.
Yeah, that fitness element is obviously something that people need to keep to a degree, and it's being able to keep your body allowing you to do what you need to do your job, but more so that ability to offer something to the group, and that's, if you think about those 4, 5, 6 people we've got there, every single one of them offers something to the people around them. None of them are selfish individuals, and you don't get many old, successful and selfish cricketers at the same time. And there'll be the odd one along the way, but a lot of those guys are people who add value not only to by scoring runs, but add value to the team around them. They bring on young cricketers. They're leading a group, whether it's through captaincy or through just being a senior player. And that kind of enthusiasm is the word you used, or that kind of ambition to still keep going and to still keep improving, and helping those around them is something that's going to make every coach want to keep them in the side as long as they possibly can do.
And do you think you see sometimes people's enthusiasm grows as they get older rather than declining? I mean, you'd naturally think it does decline, but there must be some cases, especially I suppose around people who are at the top of the game, professional cricket, international cricket, who that enthusiasm just, as they learn more and more things, they just get more and more enthused by the game, and they want to learn more and do more and increase their skills in lots of different areas. Do you think that's a part of it?
Yeah. I do think that's a part of it, and I think there's certain people that have got the mindset that they're so desperate to play as many games as possible. Inevitably, they're getting towards the end of their career, even if it's 4 or 5 years away. That they're working towards it, and they just try and make the most out of every opportunity that they have. And it's been really interesting watching Sangakkara, get out in his last year of first-class cricket, because you can see that disappointment, knowing that he's only got X amount of first-class games, and it's never a decreasing number of first-class games ahead of him, that he wants to make the best out of every single opportunity he gets to walk to a wicket. And I think that's the thing that stands these guys apart, that they're just hungry to get as much in before the inevitable does happen, and they do have to hang their boots up.
And I guess the flip side of that coin is, if you do feel that enthusiasm waning as you get older, there's no harm in saying, well, that's it for me. Perhaps there's something else I can get enthused about in the game, but maybe playing isn't the thing anymore. And so that's why I guess you get people retiring at all kinds of different ages from professional cricket, but also that's why you get people coming in and out of club cricket at different ages, as they, perhaps they don't have the same enthusiasm because they've got other things going on in their life, but then they might regain some enthusiasm when their own kids start coming through into the game. So there's always something, isn't there, if you look for it?
I think that happens a lot. I think it happens a lot, doesn't it? Sorry, mate, just very quickly. I've got a friend of mine that finished playing a number of years ago, and now his son's just got into playing, and he's around 13, 14, and he's playing in sort of 3rd and 4th 11 cricket at a cricket club, and it's encouraged his dad to start playing again. And the last weekend of the season, they actually batted together out in the middle, which probably didn't do the lad. He didn't sort of make it as a bit of a milestone, but certainly dad did, and it's really reinvigorated his enthusiasm for the game, which has been great.
They'll be putting him in for a full season next year then.
I don't know whether his body will be up for it, but I'm sure he'll be.
Sign him up. Let's go on to some questions now. These are questions that have been sent in by listeners to the show or readers to the PitchVision website at pitchvision.com. And these couple of questions that we pick out every week, we do our best to answer them, and then we choose the best question of the week, which wins a prize of an online coaching course from PitchVision Academy at pitchvision.com. We'll tell you about how to get in touch with us towards the end of the show, but you can email coach@pitchvision.com if you want to get a question into us. And that's what Cameron's done. And Cameron says, I'm able to hit sixes against fast bowlers, but I end up skying the ball to medium pacers. Have you got any tips? Also, where do I need to have my weight when I'm hitting big sixes? Forwards or backwards?
Okay, right, I'll go with this one first up. So the reason why you're hitting big sixes to fast bowlers is because your contact point is more optimal, and when the medium paces come on, you're obviously chasing the ball a bit. And one of the things that has come out of baseball in particular, but now is being mirrored in cricket, is having the right launch angle off of the bat. So as well as swinging hard and having good bat speed, which we hear a lot of on the television, it's also about making sure that the ball goes off at the right angle when it's coming off the bat face. And some of the research that's been going on isn't dissimilar, and I know you're like this, David, to Daley Thompson's decathlon back on the ZX Spectrum that we talked about a couple of years ago. where you bash the buttons and then you press the launch button and the javelin or whatever goes, or in the long jump, and you tried to get to 45 degrees in that, if I remember rightly. That was the optimal jump. But the launch, you're looking at between sort of 42 and 43 degrees, and that's very similar in the baseball world, and it's being mirrored across now into cricket as well. So the medium pace, it challenges you because you've got to allow that ball to come onto you, and often you make contact with the ball too early, and then the launch angle increases too much. Ball spends too much time in the air and it gets lobbed down somebody's throat at deep mid-off. So often when somebody hits at 42 to 43 degrees launch angle off of the bat, they can actually miss-hit it, and we see people like Chris Gale do this on a regular basis. They actually miss-hit it, but because their launch angle is good, they still carry the distance to the boundary. So that's something to work on. Just allow that ball to come onto you, even if it's coming through the air and off the pitch a little bit slower than the faster bowlers.
I saw a good thing on Twitter, a good video on Twitter the other day. It's only a short clip, and it was a baseball player, and he was hitting the ball at 90 something miles an hour and hitting the ball at 82 miles an hour, and they were overlaid over each other. And the difference in the timing, although the technique was very similar, the difference in the timing was significant when you see them sort of overlaid in front of each other. As you can imagine, at those difference in speeds, 10 mile an hour or whatever it was. So it kind of goes to show that even though you're talking about sort of repeatable techniques and all those kind of things, actually you've got to have, within that repeatableness, you've got to be able to adjust and you've got to be able to adapt to the ball. Otherwise, if you do exactly the same thing, as you were saying, Gareth, if you do exactly the same thing, you're going to get different outcomes at different paces.
Yeah, exactly right. And those things that we see, it gives us, whilst it isn't cricket, it gives us a good context, doesn't it, that we can then apply into our own game and our own batting as well. So yeah, always good to see that sort of cross fermentation from different sports.
And Lavers, what about the other part of the question about where the weight needs to be?
Well, invariably, I'd always try and have that weight coming forwards. And I know some people like to lift their head or try and lean back a little bit because what they're thinking of doing is that's the best way for them to get underneath the ball and that's the best way for them to get up in the air. But I think if you think about what Gareth was talking about there, which was contact point, if your weight's forward and you can manage that contact point effectively, then you're going to get the maximum power still through your shot, and you're also going to be able to control that trajectory or launch angle. So I'd be thinking try and get that weight forward as much as possible. There might be times when you feel like you haven't quite got the length right, and so you have to adjust that body position slightly to try and get underneath the ball slightly. So if that ball's a little bit fuller than you wanted and subsequently you think you're going to hit it a bit flat, you might want to try and do that just so you get a little bit more underneath the ball, and also you might be considering the amount of power you need. So sometimes, particularly in club cricket, you could be on a very short straight boundary where just getting underneath the ball and getting it up in the air is going to work for you. But on the whole, try and keep that weight going forwards, try and get the maximum power going back into the ball as you can as possible, and that's going to get the biggest range off the bat and see those 80, 90, 100 metre sixes which we're all looking for.
And weight forward is one of those terms which you have to be a bit careful about, isn't it? Because it can mean different things to different people. And so if you sort of blanket say, try and get your weight forward, that might sometimes give someone the wrong idea of what they're trying to do. Yes, you are trying to get your weight forward, or transfer your weight, I suppose, is another way of putting it. But you've got to be careful about the difference between your head and your foot and all that kind of thing. And I'm not necessarily saying you need to go into great technical detail with people, but you have to be careful about the language that you use to make sure that you're getting the point across that you want to get across.
Yeah, you still want to have that awareness, don't you, of what your method is, what works for you, and how you transfer your weight or transfer your body position into the ball. So that comes down to the whole concept we talked about a lot of times on here of what type of movement works for you and how you like to get yourself moving around the crease and how you can strike a ball down the ground. So understanding your own game and what works best for you is what's going to kind of fit into that gap there.
Next question is from Ben. It's another batting question. Ben says, I recently injured my right index finger and I'm out for the season. I'd like to still try and work on my batting. All I can think of is top hand drives. I'm just wondering if you had any other ideas. I'm a right-handed batsman, so I only have a good top hand.
Yeah, I think you're on the right track, to be honest, with those one-handed drives. And also, the other thing I would say is just maybe change the type of balls that you're hitting as well. So the softer tennis balls or the normal tennis balls might be okay at a certain stage of your rehab for you to apply your other hand onto a bat as well, without you getting too many reverberations through the handle, which is obviously going to be uncomfortable. So at some stage, you'll be able to progress quite into doing two-handed stuff, or even some bottom-handed work in isolation as well, but all based on how quickly you're healing. But using lighter balls can often take that pressure away from the break or the injury. So you're along the right lines there, really. The other thing is just shadowing. There's nothing wrong with doing some shadow batting. If you can repeat that over and over again, then that will be a good thing to do. Some mirror batting will be all right. But the top-handed work you're talking about is probably your starting point, and then introduce some lighter balls when your hand starts to recover.
I guess the other thing around that, Lavers, is not necessarily directly related to batting technique or batting skill, but improving the sort of peripheral areas around where you are. There's particularly the strength and conditioning, but lots of other areas around that you can work on that doesn't necessarily mean holding a bat and hitting a ball.
Yeah, absolutely. Think about the other things that go on that make you a good batsman, and part of that might be the strength and conditioning type stuff. Some of that might be your ability to run between the wickets. Some of that will be tactical. Simply putting yourself into the position as a coach is a great thing to do. So go in there as a batting coach and talk to your other batting partners about how they can go and attack different people, get different thoughts about it. I remember having one of the guys at school who had an injury, and he was out for 3 or 4 weeks, and it was right before the start of the season. So what he'd do is he'd just get in behind the nets and just watch the bowlers, and he'd talk to the batters from there, and he'd say, can you see when the bowler's bowling this way, can see how it comes out of his wrist differently, or he's looking to change his release, or he's changed his angle on the crease. So not only are you helping people around you, but you're challenging your thinking on their thinking, and you're also still watching the ball coming out of the bowler's hand as often as possible, rather than having that layoff of 3-4 weeks or 3-4 months or whatever it might be before you then see a ball coming out of the bowler's hand again. So, and if anything you can do around it that's going to minimise the drop-off you're going to have, and part of that you might actually be able to add a lot to your game, which you might not have been able to do if you were too busy hitting balls. So there'll be opportunities that you can improve certain things, and there'll be other things where you're just trying to minimise the drop off you're going to have. But definitely get as much top hand work done as you can, because that's going to be useful anyway. But yeah, those things that surround batting, those things that are going to add to you and add to the team are still things you can work on, still things you've been doing even if you've got a bad finger.
And it comes back, I suppose, to a bigger picture question about what kind of mindset you're in, right? If you say to yourself, "Oh, well, I'm injured, it's all gone horribly wrong," that's one way you can interpret what's happened. But that is an interpretation. It's not. The only thing that's happened is that you've injured your hand. So you can interpret that any way you want. And if you could see that as an opportunity to do things that you wouldn't normally do, then that suddenly becomes a totally different way of perceiving things and saying to yourself, well, instead of it being a waste or something which is bad, you can say, okay, it's something which isn't particularly helpful, but I can use it as an opportunity to do something which is going to help me in the long run. And I guess that's where people who say that they're lucky as well, you hear that a lot, don't you? I was lucky, I broke my leg. I was so lucky because, it could have been a lot worse. Or you say, I broke my leg. That was really unlucky. I broke my leg, because I'm out for the season. It's one of those wider things that we often talk about around mindset and saying, well, you don't want to just be positive endlessly for no reason, but you can interpret the things that happen to you in a certain way, which helps you get better in the long run.
Absolutely. One thing I'd throw in as well, David, is just set yourself out a challenge. How about if you came back in 6 months' time, 7 months' time, however long the layoff's going to be, and when you come back, you can throw with your left hand? That would be amazing. So you come back and people see you, and you're a better cricketer straight away because you've got this incredible skill. You can pick up and throw both hands. So you don't even have to touch on your batting, but that would enhance you as a cricketer no end if you've got the ability to just throw within the ring, or just throw within that 15-yard circle, or just improve that ability there that you can get a ball in with your left hand. That would be an enormous addition to something, and it's something you can do completely you can train yourself up really nicely, regardless of how bad that index finger is. On the other hand, you'll have the opportunity to make some enormous strides forwards there. So set yourself out a challenge. Doesn't have to be that, but something like that, and see if you can really commit to it, and see if you can change yourself as a cricketer into something more productive by the time you return.
And that is all we've got time for on the show this week. We are going to head off in a moment, but before we do that, we just have one more important thing to do, and that's decide on the winner of this week's competition, the online coaching course from PitchVision Academy at pitchvision.com. And the two questions on offer this week are Cameron's question about hitting sixes and Ben's question about his injured hand and getting around that problem. Which one did you prefer this week, Gareth?
Well, I love power hitting. I love coaching power hitting. But this week I'm going to go for Ben because hopefully our answers are going to help him get through this tough time, but also come out the other side as a better and more informed cricketer as well.
And Gareth, if someone was listening to the show and were thinking to themselves, I wouldn't mind having my question answered and maybe even winning that prize, how could they get in touch with us?
They could give us a call on 0203 239 7543 or drop us an email on coach@pitchvision.com.
That's right. There are other ways to get in touch with us. You can send us a message using the messaging system at pitchvision.com. Feel free to do that. We're PitchVision Academy on there. That's our account there. If you want to get us on Facebook, we're facebook.com/PitchVision Academy, and our Twitter is @PitchVisionAcad. If you want to listen to the show every week, you can do that quite easily as well. Just go to your favourite podcast app, do a search for PitchVision Academy. You'll find us in there. Comes out every Friday, so you can subscribe for free. And if you want to go to the website to get any of the old shows, to stream the show, to download the show onto your device, or get all the old show notes and lots of other articles and things going on there as well, head over to pitchvision.com/academy and click on the podcast link for all the details. That's all for this week. We hope you listen next week, but until then, have a good week. Cheers, Gareth. Cheers, Lavers.
Cheers, fellas.
Thanks, guys.